Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Delmar Chabad Center, Chabad House of Delmar, and we have our co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com,
and the Jewish Press.
And now the new columnist for the Jewish Press.
Okay, well, thank you, Rabbi. We had a little bit of a hiatus on the show, so we're getting a little bit of a stumbling start here. But to open our show, the next season of our show, we have President of the Civil Service Employees Association, Danny Donohue. Thank you so much for coming, Danny. You've been a real anchor for the unions around the state. And you've been in 28 years. I can't imagine what that's like. You haven't changed since I first knew you 28 years ago. I knew your predecessor, but I...
Mark, that means you need a better optical program.
Well,
really.
True.
Yeah.
Rabbi, get him something.
All right. It was good
anyway,
classes.
welcome to the Jewish View. It's so nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So what has changed? Well, first tell us about CSEA, how many members you oversee, and how many you have in your corporate shop.
Well, we represent over 300,000 members across the state of New York. Towns, villages, and schools, all works, all arts out there, all of the professions, all of the...
These are state workers?
These are state workers, county workers, towns, villages, and school workers. It's public employees across the board, what we call wall-to-wall operations. Just about in every town, village, and school district in the state. We have over 500 staff that work, 300 right down the street here at our office, our main office here.
Washington Avenue for our viewers.
How many people?
About 300 down the street here.
Wow.
And we have about another 240 around the state.
Wow, so you got about 500 people under your own auspices that you personally hire.
Yes, I've hired over, let's see, those 28 years, I've hired about 85% of all the staff we have now.
Wow, that's terrific. So is there a large turnover? Do people come and stay? Do you have,
We are a terrible employer. Most of our people stay forever. We average, I think, about 35 to 40-year employees. Most of them don't want to leave. It is a family situation. The employees feel a real connection with the union because they help build it. We started collective bargaining for the state workers, and for most local governments only started back in 1969. So it's been a tough haul for the last 70 or 80 years just to get to where we have to be in the state.
What do you attribute your success of 28 years to, besides people voting for you to be here? What do you attribute that connection where you're so likable? I mean, because it is a personality type of thing.
Well, I hope it's the idea that they like me, but more importantly, I hope also that they understand and respect what we've been doing over the years. What we've tried to do is build the best, forgive me, the best damn union in the state, actually in the country. We represent a cross-section of people from doctors and nurses down to ditch diggers and truck drivers. Mm-hmm. We understand that the jobs that these people do every day is the backbone of this state. I love when I hear a governor or a mayor or a town supervisor or a school district superintendent take bows for the great job they do. Now, the next time they plow a road, take care of a patient in the hospital, make sure the students is warm, is safe in the school, then I'll give them the credit they deserve. But until then, they take a lot of credit for all of those men and women who do the job every day that make them look good.
So what does it take? I mean, they still vote for you. So what do you attribute your likability rating being so high?
I think it's because what you see is what you get. Happy Irish kid from Brooklyn that who understands that I really work for those people out there every day. That doesn't mean they're all happy with me at times. I'd be a fool to think that. But it means that I recognize that I am not the boss. They are, if they take the time to get involved. We all have voices, and we're trying to encourage them to use theirs.
And when they don't like you, do they go, oh, there goes Danny again?
Well, they normally do that, or they start screaming, and we get an awful lot of emails, we get an awful lot of letters at times.
But you listen.
Oh, we have to.
And you are flexible. You do change your mind on position.
Oh, no question. We are, if anything, we are, as I was saying to the rabbi, we are one of the most flexible unions in the state. We endorse more Republicans than we do Democrats half the time. We endorse candidates, not parties. So if someone tells me they're a good Democrat or a good Republican, then they're foolish. To be kind, they're foolish. We recognize that, for lack of a better term, we've been had by both Democrats and Republicans. When the politician wants to make hay, he'll reduce taxes, he'll cut services. Your taxes will never go up. When he says that to you, you then have to ask him, what services are you cutting?
Mm-hmm.
What am I not going to get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can answer that with a clean bill of health, fine. But most of these politicians always say, well, the public employees' pensions are too high. Well, that's nice, except the average member in our union's pension is about $22,000 a year. That's it, average. Now, the joke is when the days when people were getting 9 and 10% raises, we were getting 3. We've been paying for our health insurance and our pensions for over 40 years now. And yet, people seem to forget that we've been doing that all along. Instead of people asking why don't they have what we have, now the hue and cry is, well, we'll take it from the public employees because they shouldn't have it, which is foolish. When the bridges go out, when the roads are icy and dangerous, when suddenly the children at school are afraid for what goes on out there, who are the people you look at first? The school crossing guard, the cafeteria worker, the school nurse. These are the people who are the heroes every day who never get the credit they deserve.
Now, let me, I have friends who work for the second largest public employee union, Public Employee Federation, PEF, and they say that when they worked for PEF, they signed up with the United Steelworkers Union.
Oh, well,
And are your members unionized?
yeah. Oh,
okay.
You mean the staff?
Union?
Oh, well, no, they have their own independent staff union, the FSA, Field Services Union, and the UUE. Oh God, I'm going to get it wrong. I can't think my staff.
Okay,
UUE.
fine.
That's
United something, right?
Yeah, it's clerical unions. Both of our unions have been in place for well over 7 years now.
So they are. So
They're not affiliated with a national union.
they're not affiliated with the national
they're not.
union. Is there a reason why you?
Not from our end of the world.
Not from you.
It's up to them.
It's up to okay.
You know, Mark, I wanted to tell you a little bit of my history. My grandmother was one of the founding members of the garment workers. Give me the LG.
ILGWU.
Yeah, because she had friends that were burnt in the Triangle fires. And that's very famous if they know it. And people were, I mean, if our viewers don't know about it, that they work like dogs and they were for a few cents an hour. Unsafe conditions. They locked the doors so you couldn't get out. So when there was a fire, you couldn't even get out, and that's how they got burned. So she was very big in that. And my mother then was a teachers union, so I have union blood in me. I don't know if there's no rabbis union. You're going to have to come up with that.
Well, there is a rabbis union.
Yeah, you report to a higher authority.
But, you know, I mean, like, for sure, that's what's in my blood, that, you know, the union people took care of workers on safe conditions, working like dogs, and getting paid 2 cents an hour, you know, et cetera. What are the issues nowadays? Like, what would you say are, like, the things that you're fighting for, literally, for, I mean, you know, it seems like to me, I mean, better conditions. They're in air-conditioned offices. I know, obviously, union people, they're not unsafe.
I think
maybe
beyond air-conditioned offices.
Yeah, but the argument being that the issues back in 1920 and 30s they've modified, but they're still there. The question of, do you have safe working conditions? That's still a problem out there in the communities.
Really?
Because in some cases, management, just go to Flint, Michigan, figure out how they saved money by changing the water sources.
Right.
When you look at what can go wrong out there every day, highway crews, we've started a few years ago this Don't Zone Out, because we know highway workers were getting killed in massive numbers comparatively to anybody else out there, because people weren't watching what they were doing on the roads.
Also drowsy driving.
Oh, absolutely. And the argument being that people take things for granted. It's the idea on an icy, snowy day, when that plow truck is going by, don't try to pass him or her. Try to make sure that you give them enough room to do their jobs, and they'll get you home safe in the long run.
I'm guilty of passing a
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I-90 in Rensselaer County, and my car went off the road into the ditch, into the median. And
because it was icing.
never again.
Oh, no.
The wind from the side of the
Really?
plow, you know, the wind took
Sure.
my car, and it became part of like the Wizard of Oz or something.
Yeah.
Well, just a few years ago, when the big blizzards hit up here, Albany was giving awards to DOT workers in the area. And I remember being asked to be at the meeting, and part of our thing was to remember that these people are working 18 hours a day out on the roads. And when they go home, their driveways are still full of snow in some cases. So if you can, remember that they're part of your community. These people are out there to help you, so when they go down the street, wave to them.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
And Fred Field, who was the longtime Colony Town Supervisor, he always told me, he lived on Newton Road or something off of Route 9, and he would, whenever there was a snowstorm, he would come out of the snow and, just survey the town and do what he had to do as supervisor. But he told the road crews, do not plow my driveway or my street until last. He says, I don't want anyone to think I'm getting any special favors. There's all this sensitivity, even way back 35 years ago,
Always.
this sensitivity, to...
Always, you're getting something I'm not. That's how foolish it all comes down to. If we all work together, we can all do something.
That's right. So let me ask you about some issues. Your political action department, you have a very fine political action
One of the best in the state.
One of, if not the best.
Yes.
You want a constitutional convention? You don't want a constitutional?
No, we don't want a constitutional convention because we believe, in spite of all the ballyhoo about what the Constitutional Convention can do, we also see the potential for what they can do to everyone else. Once you open the Constitutional Convention, or you have a Constitutional Convention, everything in the state constitution is open for review.
That's right.
Everything.
That's right.
And in this day and age of, instead of let's work together, what's in it for me, the argument being, well, we could do away with everything from employment, from the civil service system, to the idea of having public employees at all. Let's contract out everything. I'll go back just a few years ago when a president named Bush said your Social Security should be like a 401k. You invest it anywhere you want to. If that would have happened, there'd be people jumping out windows today because the markets dive twice in between that. You need a stability, and the stability is government. We're afraid that if you have a constitutional convention, those politicians who like to make hay on the backs of public employees, from governors to mayors, would do just that, and there'd be no way to stop it. And contrary to popular beliefs, I would love to think that people come together and it really address the needs of the state. Do we spend more for child care? Do we take care of people in hospitals? Do we make sure people are not homeless and being fed properly? Unfortunately, I don't believe that would happen. And the proof of the pudding normally is when they start making cuts, the first group they start cutting is the public employees, which in turn means that the public gets less services. It's not a far reach, as they said, when a politician says, we're going to make sure your taxes never go up. Well, that means you're going to lose something in the process. You have to.
So you can't do more with less in terms of being more efficient. Like, instead of using an abacus, you're using a computer. I mean, that makes you more efficient. It doesn't necessarily mean you have fewer employees.
Oh, not at all. And if anything, the real sad part is when you look at where the state or even local governments, including school districts, have contracted out some of that work, there's no accountability. There's no transparency in what goes on. So almost all of the operations that get money from the state have provisions about checking on whether they deliver the jobs they're supposed to, whether they really do the things they advertise they're going to do, and very rarely is it ever enforced. I remember going back to Carl McCall when we talked to Carl about it, and he says, well, when we do that, what do? Get the money back? Yes, you do. This is taxpayer money.
Right.
If a company says they're going to build a building and hire 400 people, and they build a building and don't hire 400 people, they shouldn't get a tax break, they shouldn't get incentives.
Right.
We should hold those people accountable. And the best way to do that is to have the public employees do the job they're paid for. There is no such thing, the governor's new plan about on college campuses. If you're coming in, you bring in your business, you can pay no taxes for 10 years. As a matter of fact, personally, you don't have to pay taxes.
Startup New York?
Startup New York program. Wonderful idea. Now, who pays for the roads to be plowed, the water to work, the sewers to work, the garbage pickups, the public safety operations, all that? I believe in lunch. Free lunches are awfully hard to buy nowadays.
Well, I always had a teacher in elementary school who told me about Tonstoffel. You ever hear of Tonstoffel?
No.
It's an acronym for there ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
I'll remember that one.
So Tonstoffel. So do you think that there are parts of the Constitution that state Constitution that needs to be changed?
Oh, absolutely. But they can be.
You don't want to, it could be changed by going through 2 consecutive legislatures and then a vote by the people.
But that's also the process to have a constitutional convention to a certain degree.
Right, exactly.
You have to go through that process. But you can change the state constitution every year if the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly work together with the governor to do that. You don't need to have a Constitution Convention where everything is open to inspection. And even the idea of how you select the delegates to it would be questionable.
Yeah.
Would you put the same people in who can't agree, you know, the other 365 days a year? Would you put them in to do this again? Or would you hold, what would get them to finally agree on how they have to work
Do you
together?
think the media wants this to happen because it's like be a free-for-all and be a lot of fodder for them to write about?
Oh, absolutely.
My media is for it, because usually I think the last time they voted was like 70% something that said no. So I don't think it's a real.
Yeah, but the last time we had one was what, 68?
68, and the argument being this time is all the bad press. You know, politicians are corrupt. The government is in bad shape. You got Trump running around screaming that, you know, we got to make America great again. America is always great. The bad part about America is when dumb politicians try to convince people things are bad. You keep saying things are bad hard enough, long enough. I think the guy's name was Goebbels, who said, you tell the lie long enough, hard enough, people tend to believe it.
That's true, they do. Let me, I remember back in 83, 84, where Mario Cuomo came into office and started slashing jobs left and right. And you weren't president then.
I wasn't president then, it was Bill McGowan.
Right. So, and then by the time it was his third year, and his quote-unquote budget deficit was resolved, he started hiring again because he knew that his election was coming up in the fourth year, and he had to play nice, and he needed the endorsement of the union.
Well, I'll give you a little different version of that,
please.
In the sense that when the good Mario Cuomo first got elected, we were one of the first unions and only unions to endorse him.
Yes, I know.
Ed Koch was running from the city, and almost every other union in the state of New York supported Koch.
Right.
When we supported Mario, we earned the spot on his first canned speech when he got to be governor.
Okay.
And that was, you know, we had to make a lot of tough decisions. He had a $7 million, not even billion, millions back then, deficit. He had to do something. He had to do some tough things to people like CSEA. Handed out 7,000 pink slips. Really, you know, for friends. We were the friend.
Yeah.
And he was doing it to us. But that really didn't, there were never 7,000 layoffs.
Right.
But there was attrition, and things weren't as well as they were. By the time he left, he had totally forgotten where he came from.
Right.
At that point in time, I was the president, and we had, before me, Joe McDermott, who was there for 6 years. Joe endorsed him the election before I got there. In that election, after he won, we wound up getting our pensions rated. I should say the pension fund was rated by the governor with the help of the Assembly and Senate. We wound up with 2 zeros in a contract. Right. We wound up having layoffs. We wound up with all of this after we had endorsed him. Right. So welcome to a friend.
You know,
but when he did,
politics,
when he did that though, then I came along and the question was, why should we endorse him? Well, he's a 12-year sitting governor. He's going to win. Who's this Pataki person? Very honestly, we tried for months to find a way out. Finally, we had a press conference. I said, we're not endorsing him. Suddenly, the next morning, he wanted to talk to me. We talked, and I said to him, you know, just what I said to you now. You forgot where you came from. At the end, you had big business, big banking, big real estate supporting you, Mario. The Sierra Club is supporting Pataki.
Yeah.
Pataki's pro-choice.
Yeah.
What happened here? Well, you know, I'm better than he is. I'm a better person for you guys than him. I said that worked when you ran against Pierre Winfrey.
Yeah,
it doesn't work now.
Right.
And when he lost, I loved the idea.
So did you endorse anyone?
No, we stayed out totally.
Out of it.
And I love the argument being that because we did, he lost.
Yeah.
Truthfully, we support him 3 times in a row. And the gift for supporting him 3 times, as I said in the end, was that he forgot his friends.
So what was the state employee on the CSEA membership when he first took office and when he left?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What was that? The peak of office holder?
No, actually, back then, well, it was when he first got elected. We had about 300,000. No, I'm sorry, you carry. So with him, it was about 240,000 members when Mario got elected. Under you carry Bill McGowan, we had about 300,000 members. That was before PEF broke off and 82 broke off when we first got collective bargaining. Since then, We've been able to gain back members to the point where we're just about 300,000, and except for the Supreme Court of the United States, we would have a full 300,000 membership no matter what. But they've come up with Friedrichs, which was a thing for child care workers, that voted to be in our union, were told they couldn't be. And now we have the latest Supreme Court one coming down the street. We will find out whether or not agency fee is legitimate. I can't imagine any judge or any common sense person that says if you benefit from the work of the union, that you shouldn't pay your fair share.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that kind of common sense is not there.
Because I don't know myself, Friedrich's
I think you got to explain Friedrichs now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Friedrichs is a court case brought against the California Teachers Union in California that says that you as an individual, now the law says you as an individual cannot be forced into a union membership. But you can pay your fair share of the cost of the union for your contracts and your benefits and everything the union negotiates and polices for you. This teacher, supported by the Koch brothers, actually stated that she didn't want anything to do with the union, but she still wanted the benefits. So this lawsuit, in effect, would have the ability to say you don't have to pay anything to the union that negotiates for you, and you still collect the benefits of that union, what it negotiates for everyone. Which makes no sense.
That was allowed?
And it's not.
No, it's in front of the Supreme.
Oh,
it's in front of the Supreme Court. The case was argued in January, with Scalia passing. The question now becomes whether or not you're going to have the vote. If it's a 4-4 vote, it reverts back to the California courts, which ruled in our favor. But the truth of the matter is, as I said, I can't imagine, and it's probably the beginning of what's going on there. That's the extreme case again. Instead of looking at what's good for the whole, we start looking the narrowest view.
Yeah.
Individuals' rights. Right now, under New York State law, we can't make you a member if you don't want to be. And you don't have to pay full dues. You can get your political contributions back. You can get other things back. But you have to pay at least a fair share of the cost of the union's operations that you do benefit from.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I appreciate that explanation.
Excellent, I understand.
And I hope that the audience really got a lot of it. But I just wanted to ask you about our current governor, because he seems to be doing the same thing or similar to what his father did, only faster. And while it took Mario 16 years or 12 years
to get there,
to tick you off, he's doing it in 4 or 8 years, you know.
When he first got elected, we tried to sit down with him and point, and he was under a misunderstanding that we never liked his father. As I said, we supported his father for 12 years. Yeah. The issue being that he seemed to start where his father ended. Suddenly, for some reason, when he was running for office, the public employees became the enemy. Public employees were bad. Public employees weren't necessary. Public employees, and I understood the state had a financial problem. It always has a financial problem. But the question is, we didn't create it, we don't cause it, and we sure the hell aren't the solution. If you get rid of all of us, you're still going to have to provide services, or you should provide services to the rest of the public. And one of the things we tried to point out to the governor is the hundreds of thousands of state workers, let alone the towns, villages, and school workers, are all part of your constituents.
So would you call him on, if he says to you again, if you don't agree to 2 zeros a year, each, you know, 0 increases for 2 years, and you state, otherwise we got to cut 10,000 jobs. Are you going to call him on that this time?
Oh, absolutely, because
you didn't last time. You got him, you know. He
well,
got away with it.
last time we had the choice was, as you point out, 10,000 layoffs, and the question then at the time was, can we do anything else? Well, we wound up saving of the benefits that he wanted to slash and burn, that he wanted our people to pay 50% more for our health benefits, which was insane, which we did not happen. We also made sure that we got a 2-year guarantee, or actually a 4-year guarantee of no layoffs, which was the thing we had to do. There's no question now where we are in the state where it is right now. Zeros are not on the table as far as we're concerned. And very bluntly, if the governor wants to have layoffs, then the pox is on his house, because we can't take it anymore. We know that there's not enough public employees right now. When you hear the numbers of overtime, the massive amounts of overtime for the people that are out there, it's not because they just want to make money, it's because there's not enough people to do the work. people in our psych centers that make almost double their pay because they can't leave the patients by themselves. They can't walk away from the jobs. The governor has to recognize that you can reduce your overtime by hiring enough employees to do the job. And you don't need all the managers, you don't need all your
So are you going to have a contract on time, or you think it'll lag a little?
Oh, I think it'll lag a little. I think it's going to lag a little because the governor's fighting with the budget people this time. I'm not sure they're going to have a budget on time, but it's a hot rumor. If you remember what happened last time, they took a number of pieces and put it off to the side. Well, if they do that again, they'll have a budget on time. But if they really want to address their jobs, they'll have to work them out. They can't just walk away from them. And some of the governor's proposals are just as ridiculous as they've ever been.
Okay.
How long is the contract for? 1, 2, 3, 4 years?
We've had contracts for 3 years and 4 years, and the last one actually was for 5.
Yeah. So let me ask you, as we're wrapping up, I got to ask you about this education investment tax credit. It's so important to the Jewish community, and you're opposing it. Tell me what because it's not quite as black and white as I'm making it sound to be, because I think that you feel like you can split the...
We're trying to split hairs on
Yeah.
it. What it comes down to is also, it ties almost to the tax cap issues that we wind up with, that you can only have so much money going into these programs, unless you have a way to make sure the programs can be sustained without reducing other services that are necessary. The governor seems to be, if you listen to the governor's State of the State, I think the number was $100 billion. He was talking about new money in the process. The only problem we have is, where is he getting the money?
For the education investment tax
Well, no,
credit?
I'm saying for everything.
No,
in
I'm
it.
talking about
Yeah,
this.
for the education.
This was $150 million, and then it was 75 for public and 75 for private.
Yeah, the problem we have is normally what they've done is move the private money, as an example. When the situation originally with charter schools and the rest of it was that the public money wouldn't go out of the public schools, but somehow charter schools would get funded. Now we've found that there's no way out of that. They've been moving, as they move students, they move money. In doing that, you create a problem in the public sector, public schools. So we're saying you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, but you don't create as much of a problem as if you didn't have the private schools, and all those students enrolled in the private schools, and then you had the burgeoning building. You know, the buildings just aren't at capacity to hold everyone.
Well,
So,
you've also had those problems for years when parochial schools and everything else. The argument's always been, do you want to pay more for some, theoretically a better education? And in some cases, you can argue it both for every religion in that sense. The charter schools are even a wilder
Are you
one.
a product of a parochial school?
Yes, I am.
There you go.
Yeah, but
And you turned out great.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not sure about those nuns and priests. I'm not sure they would be happy with me. Because I report to a higher authority.
That's
My
true.
membership, there's a difference.
There you go.
The issue that we're looking at is there has to be a better way of doing it. They're not trying to you go to Roosevelt School District on the island,
Yeah.
and you showed them over the years that they're supposed to be doing better. It's one of those targeted schools that really has a tough
That's the
time.
anomaly, though.
Well, Albany High.
I know.
Albany High. In one breath, we're talking about we can do certain things here. We can build a new football field, but yet the rates of students graduating, the rates
Yeah.
of students getting where, and it's not just money. I understand that, because that's the issue. If it's just money, then New York should be the flagship of the Western world,
You're right.
but it's not. Instead of looking at what you do,
So you have a possibility of changing your position if certain things fall into place.
We want to see how the governor intends to get the money to those places and what he intends to do to change things. The Common Core issue was a disaster.
Right.
That stupidity was unbelievable. But now what are we doing behind that? It's nice to say, well, the teachers, we're gonna rate teachers based on the students. Good idea. I have a daughter who's a special ed teacher. She loves the kids to death, spends more money on them than she does on anything else in her life. How do you rate her when the students themselves can't be rated?
That's right.
Not only unfair, but when they did it to her, they said, well, we'll take care of it later. Somebody will figure it out. Government has a responsibility to not wait to the last. I know it's the resource of last resort,
Right.
but it has a responsibility to look at how it implements these things
Okay.
and make them work for the people that need them. The argument that we see out there is the fact that the governor can throw it out there. It sounds good to you. I'm going to give you $100 million.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you $200 million. I'm going to give you $300 million. where are we getting it
You
from?
didn't say when.
Oh, when? Yeah. Well, that's the other half of this one. You know, how many times do you get a politician promising the world?
Right.
But when people say, now, can you tell me how you're going to deliver that? It's silence. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's deafening.
But we try to argue with people, too. We are the government. Forgetting the governors and everything else, we're the people who have been here for 106 years, CSEA. 106 years.
So do you think that you're going to endorse Andrew again, or it's too early?
We haven't endorsed him the first 2 times.
Okay.
We believe that if we want to work with the governor. I've sat through 7 governors now, so it's kind of funny. But the idea here is the fact that if the governor wants to work with us, we'll work with him, because we want government to work.
Yeah.
We want the taxpayers to get the best bang for the buck they should.
Okay. Well, let's hope he comes back to his roots.
We'd like him to come home.
You know?
Governor, if you're listening, we
Yeah.
really like you back.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Danny Donohue. Not only are you good for your members, but you're good for the people of New York State, because like you say, New York State's not going to run without your members working. So continue and do it with good health.
Thank you, Riley.
Yes, keep up the good work. Much
Thank you, Mark.
success.
Thank you.